So no problem. So did you get the agenda we sent?
I did.
Okay, perfect. So let me just pull that up and just go over a few kind of explaining why we do the webinar. And then it was an excuse for me to also catch up and see how your world is going.
No problem.
Yeah, so good morning. So we're recording it, which allows our students to go back to the beginning portion. But
Mhm.
the idea of the webinar series is that in the US, I feel like people don't have enough background or information on what to do if they want to, like, how do I prepare for my future career? If they tell me I don't need to know what I want to do until I graduate high school, but what if I want to start exploring in a more deliberate fashion? So these webinars are aimed at helping students to think about what do you want to do with your life and who can you talk to? Who can you ask questions about? So imagine if we do this for 20 different careers. I think it'll help people to have some starting point. They can always pivot. I joke and say the US is the only place that a lawyer can become a doctor to, later, but
It's
that's not always the case. So
it's
yeah, so that's so thank you for kicking us off in the series.
yeah.
And so the brief introduction, of course, we have Dr. Raila Tarfa. She studied neuroscience. She'll share more about her background academically there, but today she's talking more about medicine. Now, I didn't tell her this ahead of time, but one question I'm very interested in later on is probably how AI is used at all for you guys, what you
Yeah.
guys do. So anyway, so that is something that we'll look at as we go on. Let me see. So you came, yeah, you know what? I'm actually gonna let you. I saw your PowerPoint.
Yeah.
You're gonna tell them a little bit about yourself. So let me go ahead. Give me 1 second. I think my other co-host is here. So
Mhm.
good morning, Joseph. And I'll go ahead and let you sort of start. But let me go ahead and double check my recording folder. Let's see.
Sounds good. And then I'll just share my slides right now.
Okay, that'll be excellent. Let's see. Mm.
Okay. I think we're screen sharing. And even though we've been doing Zoom for over 5 years, I always still struggle with hiding some of these meeting controls.
Oh, sorry. I think if you just go to slideshow.
Oh, I figured it
Oh,
out.
okay, no
I just
problem.
always
Yeah.
and then I think I'm in the so let me switch it to slideshow so that it can okay, and we're in slideshow now.
Yes.
What do you see on your screen?
Medicine as a career.
Okay, sounds good. So it's a slideshow.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So let me know when it's good to start and then I'll
Yes, it is good to go.
Okay, so thank you everyone for the opportunity to just come in front of you and talk about my career. Um, so right now, I'm currently a resident physician in otolaryngology, but I am also a scientist. So I do have both a medical degree and what you would call a research terminal degree or a PhD. And as part of the opportunity of being a resident, I'm able to not only practice medicine, but I'm also able to do research in the lab. And right now, I'm currently finishing up one of my 2 years of research in the lab after spending 2 years practicing as a resident physician. So I just wanted to spend some time this morning talking to you about a little bit about my background, how I developed my interests along the way, and how I got to this point of getting to medicine. So as part of this talk, I'll talk to you about my journey and joys along the way. There's also struggles, but we'll try to keep everything positive. I'll talk to you about my career path, both in science and medicine. And lastly, just some general advice and we'll open it up for questions that Amos and the rest of the panel has, and also any questions that the students may have. So throughout this talk, I have interlaced different quotes from Dr. Seuss. I'm sure some of you have heard of that book, All the Places You'll Go. And I find that Dr. Seuss is just very encouraging. A lot of his quotes ignite that dream and hope that a lot of us have when we're very young. And I would encourage a lot of you to read his books because they're very inspirational. The reason for I have this slide up is just to kind of talk a little bit about my humble beginnings. So I was born in Gainesville, Georgia, here in the US. And at the age of 4, I was born to immigrant parents and they weren't citizens. So at the age of 4, we moved back to Nigeria. And I have Nigeria shown here on the map. It's located in Western Africa. It's this red little map. And if you ask me, I think that's the most beautiful country in the world with the most beautiful shape. And the continent, it has the most beautiful shape of all the continents in the world. But I'm biased. But I moved to Nigeria when I was 4, and then I moved back to the US. Sorry, my arrow is supposed to be going the other way around. I moved back to the US when I was 17 for college, and I went to University of Maryland, Baltimore County. And those were the humble beginning days of Facebook. And that's how Amos and I actually met and came across each other. So, at the age of 4, while living in Nigeria, I went through our educational system. So it's a little bit different from the K through 12 that you have here in the States. In the US, everyone goes through elementary school, middle school, and high school. But for us in Nigeria, we go through the British system where you go through primary school and secondary school, and the ages like roughly match. Um, so starting in primary school, I just developed a love for reading. I was one of 3 kids. I was an older child. There's just something cultural about Nigeria. We're encouraged to be, especially in northern Nigeria, encouraged to be quiet and reserved. And I just picked up reading as a habit because that would pretty much help me stay out of the way of adults and not get into trouble. And reading was great because I got to have a very rich imagination. It really sparked my creativity through secondary school, which is what you would call middle school and high school. Here in the US, I developed a love for writing. I would write a lot of like cheesy stories and share them with my friends and family members. And it was great. I had a blast as a kid. My parents were very active in church. I got involved in the children's choir, sang a lot, and my parents also owned a pharmacy. Um, that would be considered child labor in, in the US. But I took turns with my parents selling medications, which I have a small picture just illustrating that. I knew things like what we would call Tylenol here and things like ibuprofen. I could tell you the doses, sell those medications. So it sounds stressful, but I had a lot of fun growing up as a kid. And I did all of that through ages 16, 17. So here, Dr. Seuss talks about having brains in your head, feet in your shoes, and how you can steer yourself in any direction. So as you can see, throughout what you would call middle school and high school, I had a rich variety of interests. I read, I write, I read, I wrote, I sang, I sold medications, and we didn't have a lot of sports in the school I went to, so I wasn't very active athletically, but that's actually something I wish I had been more involved in. The point of this slide is just to say, as you're growing up, continue to feed into who you are. So anything that is positive, anything that gives you joy, things that make you happy in a positive way and just grows, gives you a strong sense of self and makes you confident in who you are. Those are the things you should pursue because inadvertently it'll help you find your career path and where you want to go to in life. Um, just a little bit of a side story, towards the end of secondary school or what you would call high school, then the conversation about college came up. Now, how college is done in Nigeria is very, very different from how it's done in the States. But for me, I had the privilege and the opportunity of knowing that I was born in the US. And so what I did was go to what we call back in the day called internet cafes. So in the mid 2000s, believe it or not, not everyone had internet in their house. So there were these things that popped up called internet cafes in the city I lived in where you could go on computers, pay for a couple of hours and just browse on different websites. And so that was how I went on to like collegeboard.com just pretty much just browse the internet, learning about different schools. I went based off of different maps that my parents had of different and like encyclopedia of states in the US. And all of this sounds very random, but that's just because I didn't have a lot of resources or people to talk to about this other than my dad, who went to Tuskegee for college in the US. And so I would ask him for different states maybe that he knew of that I could look for colleges. And I honestly just applied to a random smattering of colleges. I wouldn't advise you to do that today, but definitely work very closely with your college counselor and take things into consideration. Do you want to live close to home? Do you want to live far away? What do you want to major in? If you know you want to major in something like computer science, kind of ask the people in your life or ask your college counselor, like, what colleges are great for computer science. So for me, all I knew is I wanted to study medicine, and I had developed like an interest in that quite early on, especially given the fact that like I sold medication in my parents' pharmacy and things like that. From browsing the internet, I stumbled upon University of Maryland, Baltimore County. And I think I emailed them and they sent an application package to my house, and the rest is history. That was actually the only college I got into. Um, and I was very fortunate because when I got to UMBC, I found out that it was the second most diverse college in the US behind Rutgers University in New Jersey. And so I had come in thinking, oh, I was, going to be the only Nigerian I knew or only Black person. No, there were people from all over the world, and it was a great time. It was also a college that was very, very focused on the sciences. They actually had a scholarship program for underrepresented minorities or people from poor backgrounds who were interested in the sciences. And so it was very academically rigorous. They encouraged internships. And that was actually how I got my first internship in college and got to learn about research. There, I learned more about neuroscience. I majored in bioinformatics, and we can talk a little bit more about that. But college was a very busy time, and just as I said, with secondary school or middle school and high school, really dig into who you are and be confident in that. It may be hard because there's so many voices coming at you, but always take the time to know what you like and pursue that. So I always knew I was interested in the brain, interested in the neurosciences, and I got to pursue research in that. I was I was a very shy and reserved person when I was younger, but I was also very passionate about things in my community and what was happening in the world around me. And so that is what got me involved in Student Government Association. And I served as a senator on my student campus for 3 years and was elected 3 times. Um, and because I was the only one in the States and had left my family in Nigeria, I pursued what we call federal work study opportunities. And if any of you have questions about that just feel free to reach out because it's a very specific program, especially for people who come from poor backgrounds, or if your parents just don't have enough money to send you to college and you borrow from the government sets aside a little bit amount of money for you to get a job on campus and then they pay you. And it's great because I had friends who like would work in a lab and get paid from that grant. And for me, I got to work in human resources throughout college while being paid from that grant. So as you can see, college was very busy, but I kept developing my interests both in research and in science. I had wanted to go to medical school. However, a lot of my interests at that time really pushed me towards research, and that's how I decided to pursue a PhD in neuroscience. Um, so this is just like a smattering of it. It looks a bit overwhelming, but it's just a smattering of different places I've been associated with and currently associated with. So I got my bachelor's or what you would call your college degree from University of Maryland, Baltimore County. And then afterwards developed my interest in research and in neurosciences, and that's how I pursued a PhD at Brown. But while my degree was from Brown, a lot of the work I did during my PhD was done at the NIH, the National Institutes of Health in Maryland. And then while in grad school, developed an interest in or rather, that interest of mine in medicine became further enriched. I got to see different physicians who also did research and saw patients in action. And that's what really encouraged me to rethink my position about medicine. And that's how I decided to go to University of Pittsburgh to pursue a medical degree. And we can talk about this a little bit more, but while you spend 4 years getting a medical degree, but in the US, having a medical degree doesn't really mean much in terms of patient care unless you go for post medical school training, which is what we call residency. And so in residencies where you get to pick your specialty, so whether you're going to be a heart doctor or a lung doctor or just a general doctor, you get to do that in residency. And so for me, I'm currently in otolaryngology, and so I'm an ear, nose, and throat doctor. I'm training to be one. And at the end of residency, that's when you take a series of exams that allows you to sort of be your own boss, so be an attending. So I had this quick slide here to talk to you, just a day in the life of what it's like being an ear, nose, and throat doctor in training. So I have this fun quote from Dr. Seuss, which says, "All the places you'll go, there's fun to be done, there are points to be scored, there are games to be won, and the magical things you do with that ball will make you the winniest winner of all." And I know it sounds very cheesy, but it's just the kind of perspective I like to have. I feel very humbled and honored and like in such a place of privilege to be able to wake up every day, go to work, and really meet people at some of the most vulnerable and like worst moments of their life. And you get to be part of a team of people that just helps people get better. And a lot of the work we're doing is based on hundreds of years of work that has gone into building the kind of care we give people, from research to medicine. We're really right now standing on the shoulders of giants when we treat patients. So like I said, I'm an ear, nose, and throat doctor. And so really this is being a doctor of our sensory systems and how we communicate. So I get to treat diseases of the ear. So like I'm sure a lot of you have had ear infections and you had an ear tube placed, you had to go to sleep and have an ear tube placed, and that's what an ear, nose, and throat doctor does. Maybe some of you have had sinus infections. It's possible some of you have had surgery for your sinus infections. That's also what an ear, nose, and throat doctor does. And some of you may have had issues with your voice, or maybe unfortunately you've had parents or family members in your life who've had cancer of their throat or cancer anywhere in their head and neck area. We also treat those diseases. Right here on the left is me. This was actually me on one of my general surgery rotations. I was in the operating room, and the supervising doctor and another senior resident were saying, "Oh, Rahela, we need to take a picture of you as you're trying to, make sure there are no blood vessels bleeding right now." So that was a lot of fun. Right here at the bottom is a picture of me with a supervising doctor and one of my senior colleagues. And this is actually just a practice day where we get some time in the lab to actually just practice on our surgical skills on models. And right here on the right is actually the first day of one of my junior colleagues, her first day of residency, and the supervising doctor had me show her how to position this little speculums in the ear and have her watch me clean out an ear. So as you can see, the day is very variable, but the core of my job is that I see patients in clinic. I get to operate on patients in the operating room, and I get to see patients in the emergency room if if they have any ear, nose, or throat related issues. And Amos had a question about work-life balance, which is very difficult to have, as you can imagine. Even you and being in high school or being as a student, I'm sure you can imagine it's very hard to balance different aspects of your life. But what Dr. Seuss says is you'll get mixed up. As you already know, many strange birds will come along the way. So when you step anywhere you go, step with care, with tact, and remember life is a great balancing act. Never forget to be dexterous and deft, and never mix your right foot with your left foot. And I don't think anybody, any human being gets this perfectly, but just always remember your priorities and what you need to always remember your priorities and what you need to keep focused. So as you can see, these are some of my co-residents. We've had time to go hiking in residency. I've had time to go home and visit family. Like I said, I developed a love of reading when I was very young, but these days I don't really have time to sit down and read a book for like 5 hours or 10 hours. So what I do is I listen. So I've switched up to audiobooks. So this gives me the flexibility to listen to my books while I'm cleaning my house or driving and running errands. So it's really giving me an opportunity to keep up with my love for reading while being busy. My co-residents and I go have a ski day every year. So we go skiing. I've gotten to visit a lot of parks around the States. I still present my research. I even got to go see Beyonce. So you can see you can become a doctor and still have a life, as you can see. Um, so I just had this slide on here just to talk about the things to keep in mind when you want to become a medical doctor. It is something that takes a lot of time. And a lot of people will say, you know, why would I spend that time doing that? Or people get instantly scared when you tell them it's going to take this long to become a doctor. And people say, oh, wow, that's a long time. My argument, and I've always felt this way since I was a little kid, is the time is gonna pass anyways, whether you like it or not. If it's in the stars for you to live up to 80 or 100, it's gonna happen. Wouldn't you rather spend that time doing something you actually want to do? Wouldn't you rather spend that time actually stepping out of your comfort zone and doing something that you think, oh, I'm scared of doing this, but then what if you were actually achieve it? You know, I think there's nothing as frustrating and there's nothing as scary as living a life unfulfilled or living a life where you never really got to achieve your dreams. So I think that whatever you need to do to pursue that dream in a positive way, of course, in a healthy manner, of course, definitely go for it and definitely ask for help along the way. So I have this starting through like K through 12, which takes about 12 years, right? And then college, which is anywhere from colleges these days, I know can take a little bit longer. So for example, college took me 5 years and it was fine. It was great. I needed 5 years because I took a lot of credits. I did three minors on top of my major, and I also worked throughout the time I was in college, and I needed that extra year. Medical school also took me 5 years. The COVID pandemic hit in between my right in my third year of medical school, and no one knew what was happening when COVID hit. So I took that time off to actually spend some time in a lab while the school paid me to do research. And it was great. I actually got time to finish my third year of medical school, take a break for a year, just rest, become a person again, and then finished medical school. So normally college will take 4 years and medical school take 4 years if you don't take any breaks. And then residency can be anywhere from, I think residency used to be anywhere from 3 years to 7 years. It's now 2 years because we have two new specialties, one called occupational medicine, and I think there's another one called lifestyle medicine, and those specialties take 2 years, but you can go up to 7 years. So for example, I'm in a 7-year residency program, so surgical training for 5 years and then research training for 2 years. So things like neurosurgery, otolaryngology, general surgery, plastic surgery can take up to 7 years, usually the surgical programs, and a lot of the clinical programs will take anywhere from 3 to 4 years. And then lastly, after finishing residency, which is training, it's like school all over again, but you are a doctor. It's more so an apprenticeship. After all of that, you get to take a couple of exams, and then for the rest of your life, you're an attending or what we call a board certified doctor. And there are some recertification exams you have to take maybe every 10 years, depending on what field you're in. But at that point, it's a piece of cake because you've been doing this for so long. You're an expert. So just in general advice for those of you thinking of becoming a medical doctor or considering medicine as a field, just remember to be yourself, be disciplined, and being disciplined means you're constantly reevaluating the things you need to improve in your life and then doing what you need to do to get better. And for me, most recently, so when I was younger, I was very disciplined when it came to studying. I would get up every day, did my homework, did what I needed to do, study for my exams, even if it was weeks ahead of time. As I got older, I've had less and less time to be that disciplined. But one thing I've recently started to work on is my physical discipline. I wasn't athletic when I was younger, and I'm trying to be athletic as I'm older. And what I'm relearning is that discipline is constantly just doing what you need to do every day. It doesn't matter how you feel, you get up and you do it. Another thing you need to do is listen. Listen to the people in your life, but always evaluate it to your internal metric, your internal system, and your gut feeling. So listen to people, the older people, the wise people, the people you want to emulate, and evaluate that with what your thoughts are. And then lastly, always have a plan. I don't care if you have a plan A to Z, but always have a plan. If something doesn't work out, then I'm going to do something else. And as long as this life, there's always hope. So always have a plan. And then lastly, thinking of the future of medicine, I just have a couple of quotes here and we can come back to this just depending on the question that we have. And then I have there are a couple of websites you can go to as a high schooler or a student who's very interested in learning more about medicine. The main resource is called AAMC, so the American Association of Medical Colleges, aamc.org. It can be a little bit overwhelming, but on that page, each page has a different section dedicated to which stage you're in. So if you're someone who's very young, just trying to learn about getting into medicine, there's literally a host of pages on there on one of the tabs that you can click onto, and it's in very straightforward terms and words, nothing complicated. You can read it and understand what you need to do for your next steps. So thank you for listening to my talk, and we can address any questions that you have.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rahila. Now
Yeah.
they call even when you're a resident, I mean, you are a doctor. We say Dr. Rahila, correct?
Yes, yes, yes. You are,
Can
you
you
are,
clarify?
you just can't practice independently as a
Okay.
resident. You're always under a supervising doctor. So,
Okay.
mhm.
Okay, no problem. Thank you again. I have, let me see. I know there's a young lady on the call who also is interested in medicine. So I don't know if she
Yeah.
wants to type in her question or if the parents want to send it to me or just go ahead and type in the question in the chat. I want to see if there'll be, let me see if I can add them here.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So Haraya, if you have any questions, just have your parents go ahead and send it in the chat. Let me put something in the chat here. Let's see, host and panelists. Okay, while they're getting their question ready, here's one question I quickly have. Are there times where you had doubts and you considered like, I don't know about this? This is just like, how did you keep going in the area where you felt like you hit a wall? Or have you ever hit a wall or no?
Oh, no, of course, every day.
Okay.
I hit a wall every day. I think that it's very important to surround yourself with supportive people.
Okay,
Um, I think that every step of the way, so for example, when I was an undergrad, I definitely had come in with the intentions of going to medical school.
sure.
I was very worried about my grade. And looking back now, I didn't have to be that worried, but I
Yeah.
was very worried at the time. And like I said, I went to a school that was very STEM, a college. It just, all of this is Providence, right? Like I just happened to go to a college that was very STEM focused, and a lot of kids, like, I mean, Black kids, white kids, a lot of people were going to medical school, people were getting PhDs, and the standard just seemed so high. And I remember being so doubtful. And I came up with it seemed at the time that like I made this plan. So at first I was like, okay, I really like research, I really like medicine. It made sense
Mm-hmm.
to pursue a MD PhD, but I
Yeah.
didn't really have good mentors that were MD PhDs. All my excellent mentors were PhDs. So this is why I say it's very important to surround yourself with a supportive
Yeah.
community. And when I spoke to my advisors and my community, everyone was so encouraging, like, okay, pursue a PhD if you're not really sure about the MD part. And so that was what I did.
Yeah.
And while in while getting my grad school, I remember hitting a wall right around what we call our candidacy exams. So
Yep.
candidacy exams are what you take when you need to show that you have just a very basic understanding of your project and like important subject matters in the field. And I remember just feeling so discouraged, thinking like, oh, I can't do this. Maybe I should think of another career.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the time I started like going online, talking to different people. And then I actually came up, the whole idea of being a physician scientist came up again. And I actually met with an MD PhD. I said, hey, like, this is what's going on. And he was like, why don't you just come see me in clinic? And these are the things I enjoy. And for me, that was very encouraging because it showed me how I really did have an interest in both, and I just wanted to blend both
Yeah.
in my career. So definitely always talk to people, and if you have an idea of what you want to do, just keep doing it. So,
Okay, no problem. Following up on that quickly, while I wait, I've given them a chance, and my co-host says they can go ahead and ask their question too.
uh-huh.
But what have you met some people? I know this might tie a little bit to your neuroscience. So this is a sneak
Yeah,
preview to your maybe July, August, God willing, when we do
yeah,
neuroscience.
okay.
But have you met people that seem like they just have it down? Like they seem to absorb knowledge so much more, and it seems like it's easy for them. Or is medical school and training just simply more intense, and that's just it?
I think that a lot of people fake it till they make it.
Okay.
A lot of people, no one is born just like absorbing information, right? Like I
Okay.
think that there are things you do, especially when you're younger, you've built that discipline or you've built that habit and you keep doing it. So it just makes it seem like it's so much easier
Okay.
for someone processing information, and some people just naturally, right? Like maybe they
Yeah.
do, process things a little bit faster than
Yeah.
other people. But I do think that everybody hits a wall at some point, and a lot of people just don't tell you that they're struggling or they don't talk about it and stuff. But medical school definitely is one place where especially people who you think they just get things so naturally or
Yep.
easily, they will hit a wall in medical school. Like that is the first place where I remember seeing people who crying, saying,
Wow.
this is my first B," like, and I was just thinking to myself, like, this can't be your first B. Because that's, and I think that's the importance of like being not perfect or being someone who maybe struggles a little bit or someone who's failed before. Because when you encounter that in the future, it's not it's not a surprise. You know how to pick yourself up
Yep.
and move forward. So.
Wow. Wow. No, thank you for that. One follow-up question, and I have some questions that have already been curated here. One of them is, what courses would you recommend that a middle school, high schooler who knows they want
Mhm.
to be doctors, they know it.
Okay.
What should they be doing with their time when it comes to academic rigor in challenging themselves to be better prepared for what's to come for medical school?
Yeah, so it's a little bit tricky because I know that there's the capacity in the US curriculum to do so much and
Yep.
burn out so quickly as a kid. So I want you to still like have hobbies, be a person, like develop who you are. But
Yep.
definitely the sciences, right? So if there's opportunity for AP classes in your
Yeah.
school to take AP chemistry, AP physics, you don't have to do all of them,
Yeah,
but
okay.
maybe take a couple of them, just so you get a preview for what you're going to learn in college. Some people will even go to the extent of taking community college courses. If you're interested in that and that's what you want to do, definitely do it. And let's say you're a kid who you're like, you know what, AP classes, I crushed them. Junior AP courses, I already crushed them. I'm ahead of the game. Like, I know I want to go to medical school. There are actually a few programs in the US where you can get into medical school from high school. So it's basically an accelerated program where you finish high school, going to college, you've already been accepted. Like they interview you for college and medical school. And the advantage of that is you don't have to take the MCAT unless you want to. You,
Wow.
but I mean, I would say I wouldn't recommend this for everyone,
Yep.
but I went to medical school with a few kids who did do that. And
Okay.
I mean, I think the only thing that was stressful was in medical school, that was when they were taking their first standardized exams since the SATs. So they hadn't
Yeah.
taken the MCAT, but there was a little bit of freedom in knowing that, okay, I'm already in medical school. And some of them would like study whatever, like some people studied film or something like that. And took their pre-med. You still have to take your pre-med courses, right? They took
Yeah.
their pre-med courses. Some people did AmeriCorps. I don't know if these programs will exist. So for the kids on the call, some of these programs I'm going to mention, I don't know if they'll exist by the time you're in your 20s. But like there were things like the things that we have now, like AmeriCorps, Peace Corps.
Mhm.
Some kids would take a break and maybe go work in labs and stuff, but their admission was still there, and then they would
Yeah.
come. So places, two of the places I went to school with have these programs. Brown is one of them, and
Yeah.
then Pitt, University of Pittsburgh has that
Okay.
program. I think I don't think this program exists anymore. There was a very popular program with one of the SUNY schools in New York
Okay.
had one.
Mm.
But there are just there are not that many in the States, but there are a few programs like that. So
Okay.
and
No problem.
yeah. Mhm.
So they just sent this question. They said, what score or grades do I need to? Oh, by the way, I think they need to ban the MCAT or at least revise the MCAT. That exam is not funny. I mean,
It's the fun fact is the hardest standardized exam in the US.
that's what I thought. I mean, this is serious.
Yeah, it's 8 hours long. But the good thing is when you take it, you're ready for the rest of the exams you're gonna take in medicine. It's the beginning, it's just an intro.
Wow, wow. Okay, no
Yeah.
problem. So they asked her Haraya's question is what score or grade do I need to make at the end of high school to basically getting into college, getting the best opportunities in college? What kind of GPA should she aim for? And how serious are we looking at our high school grades right now?
I mean, I think your high school grades, so just for context, I went to a high school in Nigeria. I don't think they even converted my grades to GPA here, but I had strong grades. So just to like preface that, right? So I think that do your best. As high as any grades you can get, aim for mostly A's and B's. I would say if that's what you can aim for that. And if you're struggling to get A's and B's, then you should be talking to a counselor. Like in high school, you should be talking to a tutor and like having people help you identify what the issues are so that you can get your grades up. Um, and then college is no longer just about grades, right? Like
Yep,
you need to be a well-rounded person. So
yeah,
if there's a sport you enjoy, if there are like after school activities that you enjoy, definitely engage in them, because that also gives you something to write about in your personal statement, right? Like
yep.
you're going to have to write a personal statement to get into college. So definitely do things like that. And like I said, like it's every step of the way after high school, you're always going to ask the same question. Always going to wonder, what grades do I need to get? What do I need to do? But you can have perfect grades and still not get in. I just want to
Wow,
preface that, right? So
wow.
it's important to think of the things that will make you stand out, things that makes you a multi-dimensional person. And what I mean is that shows that you're an interesting person, right? You just don't come home and sleep all day. You
Yep.
don't just come home and like, sorry, you don't just come home and study all day and sleep, right? So try to engage in activities that gives you things to talk about with people. Like
Okay.
just be a normal person.
No, no problem. One quick question, and then there's a follow-up question. How have you seen people bounce back up when medical school has knocked them down and they just feel like what things do you see people doing that help them get back up and press forward? Because I'm sure people hit a rock and then or hit a tough spot and they,
Yeah.
like failure, handling failure.
Failure. Yeah, I think this is an important time. Sorry, this is a little bit of a trigger warning, especially for the younger members in our audience, but it's important to bring up the fact that medical students residents and medical professionals have very high rates of anxiety, depression, and some other, mental stuff higher than the general population. And I
Wow.
think that it's reflective of our system. It's a pressure cooker, right? Like it's a lot of high pressure, not only of like, the fact that you have to keep up good grades, you have to absorb a lot of information, but the hospital system, right, is based on, it's based on a business model, and
Yep.
you're bringing a lot of people who are high achieving and care a lot into that business model. Um, and I think that the people I've seen who bounce back are people who are very good about acknowledging the fact that they're human. You know you
Mm.
have limits, and you also know that it is important to keep a balanced life. You're not always going to be able to do things 50-50 balance all the time, but it's important to acknowledge seasons in your life. So the people who I saw perform the best were people who after class brought their gym bag and they would run to the gym across the street and get a quick workout in, even if it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes, like in between classes. And I remember being one of those people who was very like all or nothing, like, okay, I need to be studying. All I need to do is study. And I was
Mhm.
I was really unhealthy in
Wow.
medical school, very unhealthy. I cannot stress how bad it was.
Mhm.
And I think it took me getting to that low point to realize like I couldn't, it was just not sustainable. I couldn't do that anymore. And I had to learn how to take care of myself. I feel like for one of the first times in my life. So that meant that I had to learn how to start cooking for myself more. That meant that I had to learn how to take breaks. So I would, if I would plan that, okay, I would study from this time to this time, and I would just leave. I need to come home and sleep. I need to come home and I would wake up and do yoga in the morning, like burn a candle. It's important to do these things. You have to take care of your body, take care of yourself, or else, you know, it won't end well. So the people who I've seen um do well, like recover from failure, are people who remember that they're human. They lean into taking care of themselves and lean into support from their community. So in your community can be anyone, right? Like your community can be family, your community can be, some people don't have family, your community can be friends.
Yep.
So yeah.
You know what's interesting from what you're saying? Two quick things. One is I was a head boy in head secondary school, right? So we used to study hard and all of that. Nobody ever sat me down and said, Amos, here's how to handle failure. Like nobody ever told me
Mm-hmm.
that. So I had all these opportunities to sort of shine by God's grace. And then
Mm-hmm.
when failure of a sort, right? For me, it was PhD school, right? Physical
Mm-hmm.
chemistry sorry, not even PhD school yet, medical physics grad school. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that was like, what is going on? This is intense.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we need to start teaching that to some kids, especially who maybe they're the best in their secondary school or whatever, and just finding a way to like encourage them so that when they hit that wall, they don't think, well, my life is over. There's no hope. No, 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 there's hope. We've just hit a
Yeah.
wall. And
Uh,
so one of the questions someone asked, and then I have another one, is basically what is the best pre-med option for med, sort of pre-med
okay.
degrees. Now, let me mention mine. Feel free to bash it, but I am of the belief that chemistry is one of the best pre-med degrees. My bachelor's was chemistry, but hear me
Mm-hmm.
out though. I think chemistry is a nice blend of physics, biochemistry, and biology. And so I
Mm-hmm.
love chemistry as a backup plan if I don't get into med school right away. Now, I think physics is a little too much math for people who don't want to go into that route. And then I feel like biology is maybe not the best backup plan in case you don't get into med school. Tell me, again, I'm open to be corrected. What other degrees? I heard what you said about film, and that's great for some people. But in general, what pre-med degree would you recommend for a college student?
Yeah, so I think the beauty of going to medical school is that you don't need a specific degree, right? Because pre-med is a concentration
Yep.
or a set of classes, it's not a degree. So now I will tell you just like there's like what the absolute truth is, and that's probably what I'm gonna force my kids to do. And I'll tell you both. So so I think so the absolute truth is you don't need a specific degree, right? Like I said, I knew people who were film majors. I was a bioinformatics major, and bioinformatics was very brand new back then. It was
Wow.
literally just a blend of biology, computer science classes, math classes, and I had a blast. I don't even think I was thinking as far as you, Amos, as like, oh, if I don't get into medical school, I was just like, this is what I enjoy, which I probably shouldn't have done. I knew people who were biochemistry majors, all sorts of things, people who were, I have a lot of co-residents who were engineers in
Wow.
college. Like they finished with engineering degrees while doing their pre-med courses. And then we even have I know people who were nurses. They did their nursing degree, they
Wow.
practiced and then went, but they also did their pre-med courses at the same time and then went to medical school. So you can literally do any major and take your pre-med courses. I would say it's easier to be in medical school when you've been a science major because it gives you a level of comfort with the language, right? Like you've learned from all these science classes, you're very
Mhm.
comfortable with the language, the foundation, so that in medical school, you're used to the rigor of like absorbing a lot of information at once. It helps you a little, not that it, you know, not that anything can get you ready for medical school. Now what I would tell my kid or force my kid to do is you should get a degree that you can get a job in. That's just like the economy that we're moving into,
Correct.
right? So if, I think it's an excellent idea to have a bachelor's in nursing because guess what? Even if you don't get into medical school,
Yep.
you have a job. I think it's an excellent idea to get a degree in accounting because that is you can do your pre-med courses, but you can get a job.
Yeah.
Like, I think we should try to gear people. I know what I'm about to say is against the idea of what a university is, right? It's liberal education, it's for learning as much as possible and all the things we can learn. But unfortunately, we're just the direction in which it seems things are moving in. I think it's practical to get degrees that you can fall back on. And Amos is right, like with a biology degree, it used to be that the only jobs you can get a job at NIH, you can get a job at HHMI labs and so, but with NSF, but with the funding cuts that are happening now, I think it's wise if you want to do a biology degree, by all means do it, but maybe also be an accounting major. You can get two bachelors. I wouldn't advise it, but you can do it.
Yeah. Wow. Maybe since I love math, I'm sorry, I'm gonna say you could get a math degree on the side or computer science.
Yeah, I have residents who are math and computer science majors. Like there's all sorts of people in medicine.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. So someone said, what do you wish you would have known before entering medical school? What do you wish you would have known before entering medical school?
I Again, I'm gonna go back to this whole concept of self-care and being able to, because that really helps you deal with anything that comes towards your way. I think I wish I had known that I need to be a little bit more balanced,
Mm.
with my time. So coming in and thinking, okay, well, it's medical school, they call it drinking from a fire hydrant. That's what they call medical school. And I was thinking, like, I just need to do, go, 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 go. But the more you go, 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 I think even the Bible says it, right? Like you're supposed to rest on the seventh day.
Yes, yes.
There's a reason for that. I just learned that too late in life.
Wow.
So you can't just keep going, going, going. You're gonna deplete yourself. You need to stop and recharge and have a plan. You need to strategize. And I wish I had known that. And I wish the people in my life had told me to like calm down. And so and like I said, a lot of the people who took breaks, we're in the same place now.
Yeah.
You know? So
Wow.
yeah, those are kind of some of the things I wish I had known.
So one thing you're getting me to think, and honestly, after this call, I better go exercise because I've also been in the go, go, go season.
We need to talk about it offline. I'm like a new person since I started working.
Wow. So I'll be honest with you. Here's where I've got in trouble in the past. I feel guilty resting when I know I have a big exam coming. I feel like every
Mhm,
minute of my life must be
mhm,
dedicated to studying for that exam. I think when we do our neuroscience discussion, we really have to think about how to learn, how to study, and some of those
mhm,
things. Because for me, the biggest thing is like so let's say like, and I had a friend who was the best in math, and he did this pretty well. He would understand the patterns, and the night before the exam, he wasn't studying till the morning hours. He went to bed and so on. So you're saying if we build discipline and we say, you know what, I'm going to study for 2 hours. After that 2 hours, that is it. I have given my best in those 2 hours. I need to move on and then go do the exercise or do my chores and so on. And then, so you're saying create those rhythms and don't break yourself just for the sake of the big tests and all of that.
Because guess what? If you break yourself, the world is going to keep spinning.
Yeah.
The world moves on. And another thing too is that kind of just learning that yes, you need to be disciplined, but also giving yourself grace. Like, yeah, if you were, let's say you sat down to do something and it's 2 hours, right? And like the third hour is coming up, you're still not done. Well, maybe it's, and you're feeling guilty, but maybe it's remembering that like a lot of that guilt is something that we're socialized into doing that, right? Like we feel like, okay, there's something impending, but also looking at yourself, okay, so why is it taking me 2 or 3 hours to do this? Am I on my phone? Am I distracted by something else? And trying to like really carve out like time for deep thoughts, like deep focus, and saying,
Mm,
okay, well, I'm not going to do anything else. I gave it my shot. I did my 2 hours. This is how far I've come, and this is where I'll pick up. Let me take a break and go do this,
okay.
so.
Wow, that's
And
excellent.
like your friend, the same thing. Like I was that way, and I was very strict about that in college. I would get my 8 hours. I still sleep 8 hours every night because because I tell myself like, well, if you didn't absorb it by now, but then I had put in the work, right? I had been studying and stuff, so.
Yeah. Funny story. When we take the WAEC, which is our graduation exam in secondary school, some of us were reading up till the point when they told us to line up and walk into the hall to take the exam. So then you throw your book, like then you felt like, okay, I did my best, which meant I was studying till the minute I
Until the
couldn't.
last minute.
Okay, well, you guys stay tuned for the neuroscience because we're going to figure out how to help you study more efficiently. I just have
Yeah.
like one or two and then I'm done questions. One of
Mhm.
them was, what are the biggest challenges you face in your day-to-day work now? And
Mhm.
then let me throw the last one here. Actually, and then someone said, are there specific experiences, research, volunteer work that have helped you or help people the most in getting into medical school? So maybe if
Yeah.
you want to tackle those, and then we'll begin to land our plane.
Yeah. So I would say, um, biggest challenges for me now, um, clinically, I think that it's not the work itself or the patients. I think the work itself is always absorbing, it's always interesting, it's challenging, but I love it. And the um the patients are great. Like it's never the patient's fault, right? They're sick, they're coming in. I think it's the interactions with the team members. And so
Hmm.
that's why it's always important, for me, I always strive to do two things, is always be polite and always be kind. I
Hmm.
think that will, because then you're never at fault. It's always the other person's fault and stuff. But guess what? Even in doing that, I have gotten like, write-ups and like and things like that. But I think it's always good to hold yourself up to a higher standard
Hmm.
compared to other people, because you're doing it for, why you're doing it, and what standard you're holding yourself to. And like just strive to be blameless, because people always come in, remember when you're meeting people, people are always coming in with their baggage. People are entire civilizations, right? Like their thoughts, their emotions, and everything. Um, and you're an entire civilization, but you also have to remember that it's like everybody's coming to, work at something, and it's important to keep the common goal, which is the patient. And so
Hmm.
for me, I think some of those interactions have been challenging, and I've always navigated it by being like consistently polite and being consistently kind.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think the other question was about extracurricular activities, right?
Yeah.
In like clinical volunteering. So I think even as a high school student, if you have a pediatrician, you can tell your pediatrician, hey, I want to come spend a day with you and just see what it's like. all day to just, and that's what we call shadowing. So you need to have shadowing experience. You need to show the medical school committees that you know what it's like to be a doctor. You've seen what doctors do. So you can do that in your pediatrician's office. You can ask your pediatrician, hey, do you know another doctor that I can go spend time with them? Every state has their premier academic center, right? Like if you're in Texas, Houston, um, the what like this Texas MD Anderson, all
Yeah.
these big hospital systems that, you know, maybe you see advertisements on the TV and they say come to this specialty hospital. You can actually they all have volunteer programs. So you can actually spend your summer maybe like reading for kids or reading to sick patients or keeping patient. You can volunteer with them. You can meet doctors there and ask them to shadow. You can ask about the observership program or shadowing program. And then if you want to get involved in labs too, as a high school student, you can volunteer your summers working in a lab. And you know, I know this is not for everybody because not everyone can afford to work for free, but you can see if so the NIH does have, well, as of now, they have summer programs, internships for high school students. So you can look that up, like NIH summer internship program for high school students, and see what's still available and what you can apply for maybe next year. And I think NSF too, the National Science Foundation, they have national laboratories around the country. You can look up to see if they have internships for high school students. So these are just some of the opportunities, but make sure you're always, you know, getting some volunteering experience. But keep in mind, don't just do it because you're trying to tick a box. Do it because you're interested in those things and you're trying to learn more.
Mhm.
And
Wow. Oh,
and
go ahead.
also leadership too is important. Make sure like high school, college, like your cheer club, your band club, math club, all of those things matter because it shows you're a person.
Yeah. Wow. And when you go into those organizations, it's key that you're not just there as a participant. How can you get involved in maybe leading and helping? Of course, you serve, right? Leading by serving. I think one key thing you mentioned is the soft skills are also critical in terms
Mhm.
of learning communication. And that's what I think will
Exactly.
be
Yeah.
key in this AI age, which leads me to one of my last major questions. Where do you see AI fitting into medicine or in what you do? Have you guys interacted much with it? Where are you guys at with AI?
Yeah, we haven't had much interactions. I know that, for example, in radiology, some of the conversations that have come up is AI is going to replace radiologists, the doctors who read scans. Um, I think part of the thing that's difficult with medicine is that we don't just follow a prescription or like a set of formulas. There's a gestalt to it, like a feng shui. So meaning there's an art to it. So it's not just 1 plus 1 equals 2 all the time. 1 plus 1 equals 2 may be right for Nikki, but 1 plus 1 equals 2 plus some water may be right for Sarah, you know? So you every patient is unique, every situation is different, and every time you interact with a patient, it informs what your next decision is going to be, which is going to be very hard for an AI to do. Um, it took years for them to develop ChatGPT, and even now, ChatGPT is still learning. The more we use it, maybe the slightly smarter it gets, but it's still dumb. So you you have to you kind of have to like push it towards what you want to do. And I think
Wanted.
that's going to be very hard to get an AI to do, to like diagnose patients and actually tests them. And like it can follow a formula, but it's not going to be able to make that final clinical decision making that physicians do. And that's because we're human. We're the smartest computer in the world. Like you are smarter than ChatGPT. So, so you know, I don't want us to think that like AI is gonna take over. Maybe it's gonna do some tasks, but I don't think it's ever gonna take over.
Wow. So you know that the guy who won the Nobel Prize last year, some of his work in the Nobel Prize for physics is in neural networks, and I think
Mm.
it's back to neuroscience and some of all of that.
Mhm.
So I know you guys are involved in that. So yeah, when we talk, God willing, July, August, again, I would love us to look at neuroscience and AI because I'm telling
Yeah.
everybody now we all need to learn a little bit of neuroscience. Would you say that's fair? We all need.
Yeah, I mean, everything we do is neuroscience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Okay. Any final questions? Otherwise, I was actually gonna stop the recording and have some of them wave to you and say, but
Okay, sounds good.
and then that way, I think I can make them panelists, and then we can all see ourselves and say
Okay,
to
yeah,
those
no,
who want to
okay,
stick around. So
yeah.
on those on the call, any final questions for Dr. Rahila Tarfa before we land our plane? Let me see my Q&A here. So under the Q&A, I think it says, let's see, I can see the questions. You should be able to just ask it there. Let me go back and make sure I finish my questions. Otherwise, we might just have you make a short clip of a video answering those. Let's see. Where do you see medicine 20 years from now?
That's a really good question. So, based on some of the work that the Obama administration had really funded and encouraged, was this move towards precision medicine. So, precision medicine meaning you're taking someone's individual, like factors, genetic makeup, their coding, everything into consideration in their treatment. So, really moving into this age of personalized medicine.
Okay.
And we saw some of that really take off, especially in cancer, learning how cancers are not uniform, they're very
Wow.
diverse, and like people's individual environments, like the environments around the cells in the cancer is different, and so you might need to make individual treatments towards them. Some of that work may be stopped now, may not, continue, unfortunately. Um, but I do think we may make more progress in that area.
Yeah.
Um, so a lot of exciting work that's happening now, even for example, the field of research that I'm in, is that we're doing a lot of things at the single cell level, meaning
Wow.
we're getting information on the molecular architecture or landscape, so
Yep.
to speak. We're trying to get information on like the DNA, the RNA, and trying to understand how our environment changes that information, and then how does that information relate to structure and
Okay.
function. And I
Wow.
think a lot of what we're seeing is a lot of scientists in different areas, in like our sensory, our visual system, our sensory, like how we smell,
No.
and how we taste, like all these systems are taking all of this information together so we can try to understand how we take information from our environment and like code it.
Yep.
Because it's if we're able to understand those things at a very basic level, then we can understand how we can develop drugs to target what is affected in different diseases. So I think that's where we're moving towards, a little bit more like personalized medicine. I don't think we're going to get there as fast as we would have,
Yeah.
but I think we're getting there.
It seems like everything with the world, especially even in technology, is a lot of sorry, 1 second. I have my little Malachi here.
Oh,
He's hello. He just slipped in the room. I
okay.
was just gonna say that everything is personalized, it seems. Education, even with like software, phones, everybody's saying you're gonna have your own personalized everything. You know what I mean? Is that
Hmm.
sort of the way we're moving towards as a society?
I mean, yeah, we're all very different, so I think
Yeah.
it's okay if,
No, 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 it's good. I love it.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just saying, but here's where I get concerned about it. You know my passion for education. I get concerned about when it comes to education. It's like we're still teaching a cookie cutter. Everybody sit down. Everybody must take this class at this time. And I just feel like, could we maybe look at a child's interests and passions and then guide them based on that? And I think that's where things like AI can help a little bit. It's that I
Hmm.
use AI, I use agentic AI now, by the way. It's still new. It's coming out to
Hmm.
the general public this summer, but they gave
Okay.
us, you had to apply, and I applied, I got in, so I got to play with it.
Nice.
And so agentic AI, it's literally building an algebra curriculum focused on airplanes right now for me on the side.
Hmm.
So it's like, that's really cool. So if I meet
Yeah.
a kid who says, I love airplanes, and I don't know if I love math, Amos is saying, I'm going to build your curriculum just for your taste. that's going to help you learn. You know what I mean? All the examples are about airplanes, everything.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool because I think we'll be able to get a lot of people who've fallen off of that standard approach towards education. There are a lot of people you'll meet who'll say, "Oh, like I know people like this. They're like, "Oh, I'm this, but my sibling just school was not their thing," or
Yep.
they just didn't. And I don't ever think that school is not someone's thing. You can't say learning is not someone's thing. Like you're a
Correct.
human, everybody learns. I think it's just that our styles of learning are different. And
Yep.
what you're saying sounds like it'll be able to capture those people who've like fallen off the wayside, who didn't really
Correct.
fit into that standard way of learning. So
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. I see a
yeah,
hand up as we wrap up. Haraya had a hand up. Joseph, can you please add everyone as a panelist so that we can say goodbye? And then
awesome.
also go ahead, Haraya, please.
What?
Do you want to turn your camera on and wave and say bye or hi?
We can't see. We can't see the camera option.
Oh, no problem. We can hear you. No worries. Go ahead with the question.
Okay, Araya, because I think she raised her hand mistakenly also.
Oh,
Oh
okay.
yeah.
Things, yeah. Those two questions were her big questions, and thank you for doing justice to them.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. They are out in Michigan, by the way, which has the University of Michigan Ann Arbor, which is a great place to be connected to see what they have going on. I studied medical physics, ultrasound test, training in from the professors at Michigan, and they
Nice.
did a wonderful job. So
Yeah, they have a wonderful healthcare system. So if cold emailing always works. Just look up
can you
someone.
explain what cold emailing is to
Oh
them?
yeah, so cold emailing is when you go through a website, you see someone who you're interested in talking to, and some websites will list people's email address, and you just email them and say, "Hi," try to keep you. This is what ChatGPT is excellent for, helping you write emails. You can say, "Hello, my name is blah blah blah. I'm a high school student. I'm very interested in learning more about medicine. I was wondering if there are any opportunities to come in and just spend a day or two shadowing you this summer." And most people will put you through. I didn't
Okay.
even know you can email chairs of departments, but apparently that's what kids are doing these days. Like my chair has been email, and he loves taking people under his wing to he'll bring them to the operating room to see what's going on. So
Wow. One thing you mentioned, I don't know if you see how important this is, but it's so critical is the mentorship and having that conversation before you maybe go into something. And as I was listening to your story, when you mentioned that a lot of people you were working with had just the PhDs, and then it's different when you meet someone who's an MD PhD. So somebody that kind of meets the goal, actually yesterday, Arnold Schwarzenegger, somehow he showed up on my feed and he was talking about how he was in Austria, I think, and figuring out what to do with his life. And he saw a magazine and he says, I want to be like that man. So he bought the magazine and read it back to back. So for me, when I look at people, right, and I'm like, I want to be like that person, we need to be reading about them. We need to try and reach out to them. And if they are not available, maybe somebody else like them might be available.
And
Go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, and you're doing it every step of the way. I was literally at a conference this week, and there was a girl there who I know about her because I was watching her videos to learn how to do a certain surgery. And I saw her giving a talk, and I walked up to her, I was like, I've watched your videos. And I want to talk to you about, because she's applying into something I'm interested in. I was like, I want to talk to you. But so you're always gonna do it every step of the way.
Wow. No, that is excellent. So let me quickly promote them to see anybody who has any questions, and I'll stop recording if they're shy
Okay,
and don't want to ask.
no
Let
problem.
me see. Give me 1 second. Let's see. Hold on. Okay. Oh, sorry. I see. I'm gonna move over to okay. Give me 1 second. Okay. Any final thoughts, comments, objections? Nala, I know you're on the call as well. I'm trying to move it over. Let's see. It's not letting me. Okay. No problem. It's not, I was trying to change it, but it's not letting me to switch it over. But
Oh,
if
yes.
there are no other questions,
Yeah, and
we will.
feel
go ahead.
free. I was saying, feel free to pass on my email address.
Okay.
We'll have questions later on. They can
Yeah, no, that sounds like a plan. We'll do that. But thank you so much for getting us started in our series.
Thank you.
And then
Thanks for having me.
yeah, and then I'll probably call later and just check in and follow
Yeah, of
up. So
course.
thanks for your time today.
Yeah,
And
thank you so
everybody else, thank you for joining us. Have a blessed rest of your day. We'll be in touch. So
Thank
can you actually type your email here for a second?
Yeah, of course, of
Or
course.
let me see. Is it just Rahila Tarfa?
Yeah, I'm gonna type it now.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
So
Rahila
that's my
Tarfa.
personal email, so feel free to email me.
Okay, thank you so much. And it's Rahila with 2 L's,
Yes.
tarfa@gmail.com.
I
There's
know.
some with 1 L, right?
Thanks for noticing. I'm the only Rahela with 2 L's.
2 L's. Yeah, it's very personalized. So well done.
Very personalized name.
So Mungo de so say thank you so much.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
guys.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.